The crystalline spires of Vidian colony pierced the violet-tinged sky like frozen lightning, their surfaces reflecting the twin suns in fractured shards of amethyst and indigo. The air itself shimmered with the faint particulate glow of synthesized oxygen, a perpetual haze that lent the chrome boulevards an ethereal, dreamlike quality. Pedestrians glided along elevated walkways, their footsteps muffled by anti-gravity saws, while transport pods hummed overhead in synchronized streams. It was a place of engineered perfection, where every breath, every movement, every interaction was optimized for efficiency and harmony. In the heart of the departure terminal, Lyra sat motionless in her mobility chair, its sleek frame humming softly as it adjusted to the subtle shifts in gravity. The chair was a marvel of Aquarian engineering, lightweight alloy, Neuralink controls, and anti-gravity pads that allowed her to navigate the colony's variable environments with grace. Through the transparent walls, she watched the other brides-to-be drift past in their ceremonial gowns, fabrics woven from luminescent threads that caught the light like captured starlight. Their laughter echoed to the terminal like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, light and carefree, a sound that had long since become foreign to her. Her neural interface pulsed faintly at the base of her skull, a constant reminder of the rejections that glowed red in her mind's eye. Each letter was a fresh wound, a digital scar etched into her consciousness. Born in Aquaria's low-gravity cradle, her legs had never developed the strength for standard locomotion. In a species that swam through air currents like fish through water, she was an anomaly, a genetic variation that left her paralyzed from the waist down. The Intergalactic Marriage Registry had deemed her unsuitable for most matches, her profile buried in the digital archives, accessed only by curiosity or pity. Everyone except him. Aldrich Thorne, a widowed Terran freighter pilot with a grieving 6-year-old daughter, had seen something in her holographic profile that no one else had. And what he would do next would shatter every rule the colony had ever known. The Vidian Marriage Registry occupied the tallest spire in the colony, a towering edifice of glass and light that pierced the clouds. Its walls were lined with holographic profiles of available brides from 73 different worlds, each projection rotating slowly to display genetic compatibility scores, cultural adaptability ratings, and physical capabilities. Lyra had been displayed here for 2 standard years, her image flickering weakly in the least visible corner, a forgotten relic among the gleaming prospects. She wheeled herself through the morning crowd, her chair's anti-gravity pads humming softly as they compensated for the subtle gravitational fluctuations. Prospective grooms moved with purpose, tall Arcturians with silver skin that shimmered like liquid mercury, wealthy Terran merchants in tailored suits of smart fabric that shifted colors with their moods. None of them looked at her. Their eyes skimmed past a projection, as if she were a glitch in the system. "Another viewing session, dear?" Administrator Velk asked without looking up from her datapad. Velk was a Vidian, her green skin scaled and iridescent, her 3 eyes blinking in asynchronous patterns. "You know the statistics. Your profile has been accessed 4 times this month. No request for introduction." The morning auction was about to begin. Holographic projections of brides rotated slowly on the central platform, each accompanied by a cascade of data. Lot 47, Seraphina of Centauri 6. Genetic health score, 94. No physical limitations. Cultural adaptability, 98%. Bidding starts at 50,000 credits. Bidding began immediately, voices rising in a symphony of credits climbing into hundreds of thousands. Lyra watched from her position near the exit, her hands folded in her lap. She'd long ago stopped hoping to be called to the main floor. The auction was a spectacle, a marketplace where perfection was commodified and flaws were excised. "Look, it's the broken doll again." A voice cut through her thoughts like a blade. Dexter stood near the refreshment station, his green Vidian skin gleaming with expensive bioenhancements, each scale edged in gold nanoparticles that caught the light like tiny suns. His friends, a cluster of equally augmented Vidians, chuckled behind him. "Still waiting for your prince, Lyra? Maybe he'll come with a miracle cure. Or maybe he'll just need someone to polish his floors." Lyra activated her chair's forward movement, intending to leave. The hum grew louder as she approached, but Dexter stepped into her path, his bulk blocking the way. "Running away? That's all you can do, isn't it? You know what your real value is." The registry keeps you here as a tax write-off. Charity case. Move, Lyra said quietly, her voice steady despite the heat rising in her cheeks. Or what? Dexter crouched to her eye level, his breath warm and scented with synthetic spices. Listen, broken thing. Tomorrow I'm buying Celestine of Andromeda. Pure bloodline, perfect body. Everything you'll never be. Excuse me. The voice came from behind Dexter, quiet but carrying a weight that made him straighten immediately. A human stood there, a Terran in working-class clothing, faded jumpsuit patch at the elbows, boots scuffed from years of wear. A small girl clutched his hand, her dark hair tied in uneven pigtails, her eyes wide with curiosity. The man's dark hair was touched with gray at the temples, his eyes carrying the weariness that came from profound loss. "You're blocking the lady's path," the man said simply. Dexter's face flushed a darker green, his scales rippling with irritation. "This doesn't concern you, human. It concerns me if you're being discourteous. Please move." The amphitheater went quiet. Humans were a rare Invidian colony, tolerated but considered beneath notice, primitives from a backwater world still grappling with faster-than-light travel. "Do you know who I am?" Dexter snarled. "My family controls 3 mining planets." "Dad," the little girl whispered, tugging his hand. "Is the blue lady okay?" The man looked down at his daughter, then at Lyra. Their eyes met. In that moment, Lyra saw something she hadn't seen in years. Simple human recognition. Not pity, not calculation, just acknowledgement that she was there. She was real. She mattered. "She will be," he said. Then to Dexter, "Last chance. Move." Dexter laughed, a harsh bark. "You think you can—" But the human had pulled out a data chip, holding it where Velk could see it. "I'm here to register a formal courtship request for viewing slot 327. That was Lyra's designation number. The amphitheater erupted in whispers, a wave of sound that rippled through the crowd like a stone dropped in still water. "Sir, that profile is—" "Perhaps you've made an error," Velk stammered, her 3 eyes blinking rapidly. "No error. I'm requesting formal introduction to Lyra of Aquaria today. Now." Lyra's breath caught. In 2 years, no one had requested an introduction. "This is a joke," Dexter sputtered. "You can't possibly—" "I have 20,000 credits as the standard introduction fee. My genetic profile is on file with Terra Medical. I'm employed. I own my transport vessel, and I have no criminal record. I believe that meets your requirements." Velk scrolled frantically through her data pad, her scales paling. "This is highly irregular. Mr. Aldrich Thorne, this is my daughter, Emma." The little girl waved shyly at Lyra, her small hand fluttering like a bird. "Mr. Thorne, perhaps you're unaware of the specific challenges associated with Profile 327. I can read. I read her entire profile 3 times, and I'm not interested in anyone else." Lyra found her voice, though it trembled. "Why?" Aldrich turned to her fully, his eyes steady. "Because Emma's mother died a year ago, and before she passed, she made me promise something. She said, 'Find someone who knows what it's like to be invisible. Find someone who understands that love isn't about perfection. It's about seeing the person everyone else overlooks.'" His voice cracked slightly, a hairline fracture in his composure. "I've been searching every registry in this sector. And when I saw your profile, when I read how you taught yourself 17 languages, how you volunteer to translate for refugees who can't afford interpreters, that's when I knew my wife had been right. The best people are usually the ones no one's looking at." The hall hung on every word, the air thick with anticipation. But then Velk's data pad began flashing red, a priority alert from Colonial Council. The message that appeared would turn this moment into something far more complicated than anyone could have imagined. "Mr. Thorne, I'm going to need you to come to my office privately." "Whatever needs to be discussed can be discussed here," Aldrich replied, not moving from his protective position near Lyra's chair. Velk's scales rippled, a Vidian tell for extreme discomfort. "I really must insist. And I must insist on transparency. I filed a formal request. Is there a legal reason it cannot proceed?" The administrator's 3 eyes blinked in complex patterns. The Colonial Council has special provisions regarding Profile 327. What provisions? Lyra asked, her voice stronger now. Velk wouldn't meet her eyes. The Aquarian Embassy submitted a formal request 2 years ago. Any courtship of you requires their explicit approval. They claim custodial rights due to your status. My status? I'm 24 standard years old. I'm not a child. No, but you're classified as a genetic anomaly requiring cultural protection. The embassy's position is that allowing you to marry off-world will be a poor reflection on Aquarian genetic standards. The words hung in the air like poison, acrid and suffocating. Aldrich's jaw tightened. They're blocking her from getting married because she makes them look bad. It's more complicated than. No, it really isn't. They've trapped her here, put her in the registry where she'll be rejected over and over, but won't let her actually leave. She's not a person to them. She's an embarrassment they want to hide. Lyra felt something crack inside her chest, a fissure widening with each word. Hearing it said aloud made it real, undeniable. There must be an appeal process. There is. You can formally challenge the custodial claim. It would require a hearing before the embassy's Council of Genetic Standards. Fine. Request a hearing. Mr. Thorne, these hearings can take months, sometimes years, and the embassy has never, not once, granted independence to someone they classified as requiring protection. There's a first time for everything. Aldrich. Lyra's voice stopped him. You don't want this fight. The embassy has resources you can't imagine. They'll make your life hell, and they'll win. They always win. Let them try. Why? Why would you do this? You don't even know me. Aldrich knelt down, bringing himself to her eye level. Emma, tell Lyra what Mommy used to say about dragons. The little girl stepped forward, her voice small but clear. Mommy said that dragons guarded treasures. But the real treasure wasn't gold. It was the people everyone else was too scared to see. And brave knights didn't kill dragons. They made friends with them and found the treasure together. Aldrich smiled sadly, his eyes glistening. My wife was right about people. The best ones are always guarded by dragons. Fear, prejudice, bureaucracy, whatever. But that doesn't mean they're not worth finding. I spent a year searching profiles, and I found dozens of women who were perfect on paper. Not one of them mentioned volunteering. Not one mentioned learning languages for fun. Not one had written about wanting to help others. You're the only one who did. And if I have to fight an entire embassy to prove that matters more than genetics, then that's what I'll do. You'll lose everything. Maybe, or maybe we'll win. Either way, Emma will learn that some things are worth fighting for. Lyra looked at his hand, calloused from work, scarred from years at the controls of a freighter, a working man's hand. Real. She took it, her fingers cool against his warmth. All right, let's fight dragons. Velk sighed, her scales dimming. I'll submit the formal challenge, but Mr. Thorne, you should know, the embassy will assign you an opposition advocate whose sole job is to prove you're unfit. Who? Ambassador, then. He's never lost a case. Ever. No one believed they would even try. But the document that Velk generated carried with a clause that no one had noticed, a clause that would change everything in exactly 72 hours. The news spread through Vidian Colony like wildfire, igniting data spheres and communication networks across the sector. By evening, every public terminal buzzed with the story. A human challenging the Aquarian embassy for the right to court a defective bride. Aldrich's modest apartment in the industrial sector became a fortress under siege. News drones circled overhead like vultures, their lenses whirring as they captured every movement. Communication consoles flooded with messages, support, condemnation, speculation. He ignored them all, sitting at the kitchen table, helping Emma with her homework. The table was scarred from years of use, covered in crayon drawings and half-eaten scent fruit. Lyra watched in the window, her chair positioned to catch the view of the twin suns setting in a blaze of violet and gold. She accessed the public data sphere through her neural interface, the conversation evolving in real time. User posts scrolled across her vision. This human is either the stupidest or bravest person in the sector. Finally, someone standing up to genetic purism. 20 credits says embassy wins in under a week. You should read this, Lyra said quietly, projecting the feed onto the wall for Aldrich to see. I know what they're saying. Let them talk. They're saying you're using me, that you'll abandon me once you realize what caring for someone like me actually requires. He set down Emma's homework, a simple arithmetic sheet. Are you having second thoughts? Lyra was silent for a long moment. Through the window, she could see the colony's twin suns dipping below the horizon, painting the spires in deepening shadows. She'd watched those suns set alone for 2 years, her evenings filled with the hum of her chair and the silence of empty rooms. I've been alone a long time. I've gotten used to expecting nothing. And now you're here, making me hope for things I'd trained myself not to want. So yes, I'm terrified. Good, because I'm terrified too. But Emma deserves a mother. You deserve a family. And I deserve to keep my promise. So we're going to try. Miss Lyra. Emma looked up from her drawing, a crude sketch of a dragon with a knight and a blue lady. Are you going to be my mom? The question hung in the air, innocent and profound. Aldrich started to intervene, but Lyra raised a hand. I don't know, Emma. Would you want that? Emma considered seriously, her brow furrowing in concentration. Daddy says you're really smart and brave, and you have a cool chair. Can I ask you something? Anything. Does it hurt not being able to walk? Emma, Aldrich began, but Lyra interrupted gently. It's okay. Sometimes. Not the way you might think. My legs don't hurt, but my heart does sometimes, when people stare at me like I'm broken, when they decide I'm not good enough without ever talking to me. That hurts more than anything physical. Emma nodded slowly, her small face solemn. My heart hurts, too, since Mommy died. So maybe if your heart hurts and my heart hurts, we could hurt together and maybe it would hurt less. Lyra's breath caught, a lump forming in her throat. Yeah, maybe it would. A chime interrupted the moment. Aldrich's console flashed with the Vidian Colonial Authority seal. His face went pale as he read the message aloud. The hearing has been scheduled 72 hours from now, and they've made it public. They're turning it into a spectacle. Lyra felt a chill settle in her bones. They won't make an example. There's something else you should know, she said softly. Ambassador, then, is my uncle. The words landed like stones in still water, rippling outward. You're what? My mother's brother. He's the one who had me classified as requiring protection in the first place. He's not just the embassy's prosecutor. He's personally invested in keeping me here. That night, a message arrived with the official embassy seal, its holographic projection unfolding in the air like a venomous flower. Mr. Thorne, your petition has been reviewed. However, I feel compelled to warn you. What you are attempting is not only futile, but potentially harmful. Lyra's condition represents fundamental genetic incompatibility with standard aquarian biology. I have known my niece since birth. I will prove at the hearing that your petition, however well-intentioned, is based on ignorance. I suggest you withdraw and spare us all this spectacle. Ambassador, then. Lyra read it over his shoulder, her reflection ghostly in the projection. He's not wrong about everything. I do have limitations. Caring for me will be complicated. I'm not looking for easy. Living is not easy, but we do it anyway because the alternative is worse. The alternative is giving up, accepting that some people don't deserve love because they're inconvenient, deciding that genetic perfection matters more than being a good person. Your uncle wants to protect you from risk, but he's really protecting the embassy from embarrassment. And that's not love. That's control. And just when everyone thought they would break under the weight of the embassy's power, someone accessed the data sphere from an anonymous account and released a document that no one expected. Lyra's original genetic classification report. Buried in that report was a note that changed everything. Subject displays abnormal neural development. Cognitive processing exceeds projected baseline by 340%. Recommend further study. The embassy had known for 22 years that Lyra wasn't genetically inferior. She was genetically advanced, and they'd buried it. The judicial chamber had never held so many people. Every seat in the spherical space was filled, representatives from a dozen species floating in zero-gravity pods, media drones hovering like metallic insects, protesters outside holding signs in 17 languages that Lyra herself could read effortlessly. The room itself was a marvel, walls curving seamlessly, gravity nullified in sections to accommodate diverse physiologies, tiered seating for observers arranged in concentric rings. Lyra entered wearing traditional Aquarian ceremonial attire, flowing robes of deep blue that shimmer like ocean waves, her paralyzed legs visible beneath the hem, a deliberate statement that she wouldn't hide. Her chair glided forward on its anti-gravity pads, humming softly. Ambassador then was already positioned at the prosecution platform, wearing full diplomatic regalia, robes embroidered with genetic helices in gold thread, a circlet of crystalline nodes adorning his brow. When his eyes met Lyra's, something flickered in them. Regret? Anger? It was gone too quickly to tell. The council filed in 3 judges representing the Galactic Legal Authority, 2 embassy representatives, and Administrator Velk as neutral observer. Chief Justice Kale, a crystalline being whose body refracted light into prismatic patterns, activated the recording systems with a gesture. We are convened to address petition H 4472, Aldrich Thorne versus the Aquarian Embassy. Ambassador, then, your opening statement. Then rose, his movements carrying centuries of legal tradition. Honored Council, we are here because a well-meaning but misguided individual has challenged a system designed to protect the vulnerable. Mr. Thorne believes he is rescuing my niece. In reality, he is exposing her to dangers he cannot comprehend. He activated holographic displays, medical charts detailing Lyra's paralysis, genetic sequences highlighting the variation, mobility assessments showing incompatibility with Aquarian environments. Lyra of Aquaria was born with a genetic variation that rendered her unable to function in standard Aquarian environments. Our species evolved in zero gravity. We swim through air currents. Lyra cannot do this. Her condition is fundamentally incompatible with our species' basic environmental requirements. The displays shifted to show Aquarian cities, breathtaking structures suspended in zero gravity, beings gliding through air like schools of fish, tendrils of bioluminescent algae trailing in their wake. The embassy classified her as requiring protection because without specialized accommodation, she cannot survive in our home world. And Mr. Thorne cannot provide those accommodations. He has no medical training, limited financial resources. He lives in a ground-based apartment designed for bipedal terrestrial species. He paused, letting the images sink in. The embassy has provided Lyra with lifetime medical support, housing adapted to her needs, comprehensive care plans. Mr. Thorne offers a 2-bedroom apartment in an industrial sector, employment as a freighter pilot with unpredictable hours, and a 6-year-old child. It was devastating, built entirely on practical reality. No emotion, no cruelty, just facts that painted a picture of inevitable failure. I asked the council to consider what happens after the romantic gesture fades. When Mr. Thorne realizes that caring for Lyra requires constant adaptation, when his daughter resents the attention diverted, when Lyra confronts that love cannot overcome biological limitation, he sat down, the holograms fading like dying stars. Chief Justice Kale turned to Aldrich. Mr. Thorne, your response. Aldrich stood in his working-class clothing. No holograms, no flair. Honored Council, Ambassador then is right about a lot. I'm not rich. I don't have medical training. I work long hours. My apartment is small, and caring for Lyra will be complicated. But he's wrong about what matters. He activated his own display, simple text files, unadorned. This is Lyra's volunteer record. 3 years translating for refugees. Not because she was paid, because she saw people suffering and decided to help. Another file. This is her thesis on interspecies communication. Rejected not because it was wrong, but because institutions decided someone with her background couldn't possibly have written something so insightful. More files cascaded. Linguistic certifications in 17 languages, all self-taught. Records of her aiding displaced families from war-torn worlds. He looked at the council, his voice steady. Ambassador then wants you to focus on what Lyra can't do. I want you to see what she has done against every obstacle. She didn't just survive, she excelled. The genetic report proves I'm not defective. Lyra suddenly spoke, wheeling herself forward. Dr. Nexia's research, the suppressed research, proves the embassy buried the truth, and my own accomplishments prove I'm capable of determining my own path. An elderly Aquarian female stood from the gallery, her skin pale blue and wrinkled with age. I'm Dr. Nexia, senior geneticist, retired from the Aquarian Research Institute. I filed the original report on Lyra, and I have documentation proving the embassy suppressed my findings. The chamber exploded in murmurs. Dr. Nexia made her way to the witness platform, carrying a data chip with trembling hands. 22 years ago, I discovered that Lyra's genetic variation was not a flaw, but an adaptation. I recommended study. The embassy refused. They classified my report as preliminary and told me to cease research. She inserted the chip. Documents flooded the displays. Decades of suppressed research, internal communications revealing orders to bury findings, emails discussing how Lyra's enhanced cognition challenged established genetic models. They didn't protect Lyra. They protected themselves from questions about what happens when their genetic models fail to predict reality. And then the final revelation, buried in one document. A name everyone had forgotten. Dr. Sarah Thorne, Aldrich's deceased wife, had been part of the original research team 20 years ago, before her illness forced retirement. She hadn't just inspired his search. She'd been part of the investigation into Lyra's condition all along, her notes praising the subject's potential. The council recessed for deliberation. An hour later, they reconvened. The crowd had grown impossibly larger, protesters outside chanting genetic freedom, choice not custody, in a cacophony of languages. Chief Justice Kale's crystalline form had settled into a deep blue, signifying gravity. This council has completed its deliberation. Before we deliver our ruling, we wish to address several matters. First, Dr. Nexia's documentation has been entered into evidence. We recommend full investigation into the embassy's research suppression. Second, the genetic classification system will be subject to independent review. Third, Ambassador then will be formally censured for failure to disclose material information. Then's face remained impassive, but his scales had darkened to near black. However, these administrative matters do not resolve the central question, whether Lyra of Aquaria should be released from embassy custodial status. Lyra gripped her armrests, her knuckles pale. Aldrich moved beside her, his presence a steady anchor. This case has required us to balance competing principles, individual liberty versus institutional responsibility. Normally, we defer to specialist institutions. Lyra felt hope beginning to crack, fracturing like glass under pressure. However, this case presents extraordinary circumstances: the research suppression, the buried evidence of cognitive enhancement, the systematic denial of opportunities, and most significantly, the testimony of the petitioner herself demonstrating cognitive capability that exceeds species norm by multiple standard deviations. Kale paused, the chamber holding its breath. Therefore, this council rules as follows. The custodial status imposed by the Aquarian Embassy is hereby dissolved. Lyra of Aquaria is recognized as a fully autonomous adult with all rights and responsibilities. The embassy is enjoined from imposing future classifications without comprehensive independent evidence, and Lyra of Aquaria is free to accept or reject the marriage petition as she sees fit, without embassy interference. The chamber exploded. Reporters rushed forward, drones whirring. Protesters erupted in cheers that shook the walls. Dr. Nexia was crying, tears floating in zero-gravity orbs. Emma was jumping and screaming, her small fists pumping the air. Lyra and Aldrich remained still, looking at each other in shock and disbelief. "We won," Lyra whispered, her voice barely audible. "We won," Aldrich confirmed, his eyes shining. Then they were both crying, holding each other while Emma climbed onto Lyra's lap and joined the embrace, her arms wrapping around them both. 3 days later, they stood in a small chapel at the colony's edge. No media, no protesters, just Dr. Nexia as witness, a simple officiant, and a family being born under the soft glow of bioluminescent lanterns. "I promise to always ask, to always listen, to never assume I know better than you do what's right for your life," Aldrich said, his voice thick with emotion. I promise to be honest about what I need, to ask for help when I need it, and to keep fighting to be more than anyone expects, Lyra replied, her eyes locked on his. Can I call you Mom now? Emma whispered loudly from her perch on a stool. Yeah, you can call me Mom. 6 months later, Lyra published her thesis, now accepted by 3 major academic journals with accolades for its groundbreaking insights. Dr. Nexia reopened her research program with Lyra as co-investigator. Together, they discovered 47 other Aquarians classified as defective when they were actually adapted, variations that enhance cognition, resilience, or unique environmental tolerances. The Aquarian Embassy underwent massive reforms, its leadership overhauled. Ambassador then retired to document cases of suppressed genetic research, a kind of penance that kept him far from the public eye. Years later, when Emma studied at the Galactic Academy, she wrote an essay that went viral across the dataspheres. My mother taught me that the most powerful force in the universe isn't gravity or fusion. It's the courage to choose love when every system tells you it's impossible. Lyra kept that essay beside her doctoral diploma, the one she earned in genetics and adaptive neurology. She specialized in finding hidden potential in genetic variations others called defects. Every person she helped was an echo of the days she'd been sitting invisible in the registry, and a stranger had seen her. Sometimes, in a universe of billions, it takes just one person refusing to look away to change everything. Sometimes the most revolutionary act is simply believing that different doesn't mean less. And sometimes the love everyone said was impossible becomes the foundation that changes the galaxy itself.